Welcome to the Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 regular meeting of the Arbor Planning Commission. For detailed information on the meeting procedures, please review the full printed meeting agenda that is provided. Mr. Leonard, will you call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Gibb Randall.
Present.
Commissioner Abrams.
Here.
Commissioner Sauvé.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Dish.
Here.
Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Weich.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All righty. We will move on to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve? Commissioner Mills, seconded by Commissioner Deitch. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Motion carries. Alrighty, for item number 4, I don't believe we had any minutes that were attached to our agenda, so we're going to blast through that one, and on to item 5, which is reports from city administration.
I do think you have the August 3rd minutes attached to the updated agenda.
Oh, I see. Not the one that I printed out at 5:15.
Yeah. So if you haven't had time to review it, we can just postpone that until the next meeting. Or if others have had a chance to review, it's up to the commission.
Any sense of that? Did people have a chance to take a look at them? I did not personally.
I'd recommend we just carry them forward to the next agenda.
Let's just carry them forward to the next one. Yep, I'd say so. Okay, next we have item 5, which is reports from city administration, city council, planning, planning manager, planning commissioner, officers, and liaisons. So let's start with Commissioner or Council Member Dish.
I don't think I have anything to report from,
I'm happy to report just a couple of planning adjacent items that were on the council agenda. There was a proposed historic district study committee report for creation of a new the historic Hayden House historic district. Was just presented to council, no action. And council did also authorize acceptance of a grant award that Planning Services has received from the state of Michigan for an update to the historic resource survey of our old Fourth Ward historic district. So not planning, but I know that you care about historic preservation. Also, since our last meeting, a meeting of the Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee has met. They provided me with a lot of feedback on the proposed scope that will be issued for a request for proposals for consultants. So I'm in the process of doing my best to incorporate that language in the best ways that I see appropriate, and then we'll be issuing that RFP shortly.
Anything to add? I'm seeing some. Yes, please go ahead.
I will report that the Ordinance Revisions Committee met on August 23rd and discussed the TC1 zoning district, a couple of issues that had arisen during discussion among the Planning Commission the week prior on August 16th. So namely, the setback standard as it relates to street trees and green space, and the setback as it relates to safety for driveways and curb cuts. And we were joined by Raymond Hess, the transportation manager at that meeting. And I think that planning staff is preparing a presentation for the whole Planning Commission to discuss at a future working session.
Great. Thank you for doing that. That's something that was, I appreciate that you all took that on. Any other commissioners or liaisons that have anything to report? Okay, we will move on then to item 6, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. We'll first call on individuals present to address the commission, then remote participants. To speak during this public hearing remotely, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise the hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. To unmute, press *6. City staff will select callers who have raised their hand using the last 3 digits of your phone number. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sound so that we may hear you clearly. Alrighty, so for either method of participation, please state your name and your address. Is there anybody present that would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda for tonight? Alrighty, not seeing anybody, so anybody remote? Mr. Leonard?
No speakers are indicating a desire to address the commission.
Okay. Could we move on to item 7 then, which are the public hearings for the next business meeting?
We can. One moment. All right, public hearing scheduled for the next business meeting. We'll have a proposed special exception use for a designated consumption facility at 3860 Research Park Drive. This is a location with an existing provisioning center and is proposing to add a designated consumption facility to the same location. We have a site plan with a landscape modification for 529 Detroit for Redeemer Church. This is a proposed redevelopment of the Jeff?
The old Treasure Mart.
Thank you, Treasure Mart, Treasure Mart site. And then we also have proposed new development, North Maple Apartments. This is a proposed site plan and zoning at the southwest intersection of M14 and Maple. A proposed apartment development with surface parking and sort of a accessory amenity building, proposing some affordable units, solar installations for consideration, all on that agenda.
Great, thank you. Alrighty, we will move on then to unfinished business and to item 8A, which is the Village of Ann Arbor site plan and rezoning to R4A, multiple family dwelling zoning for city council approval. The petitioner proposes to construct 561 dwelling units on approximately 65 acres at 1680 Duvarn Road. Units include owner-occupied and rental units. Access is proposed from Pontiac Trail, Duvarn Road, and Leslie Park. Stormwater detention is proposed on site. The project includes a wetland use permit for a .03 acre of wetland impact. Construction is currently proposed to take place in 2 phases. Staff recommendation, we are still kind of, I think
Yeah.
we are going to be getting some additional information on that today.
Yeah, if I could jump in. So first of all, my apologies to the commission and to members of the public. Over the weekend, we had quite a bit of back and forth. You'll recall that this item was postponed from the July meeting. We were hoping that all issues would be resolved in time for this postponed date, which we specified at that time. Many of those issues were resolved. We originally published your packet optimistically that all those issues would end up being verified. We were trying to balance getting the information materials out to the commission and to the public, while also giving about a week for our team to be able to review revised documents. In short, we learned that our engineering department and traffic review department was not in a position to recommend approval. We modified our recommendation to you over the weekend, reflecting that. Subsequently, we've worked hard with those teams. Those teams have worked really hard, the engineering department and transportation department. And the petitioner has provided a lot of additional information as well. In short, we are recommending approval of this petition. We have added some conditions, however. One of those conditions is that the Public Services Engineering Review approves all of the outstanding comments prior to us scheduling this for consideration at the City Council. There's also a recommendation for a variance, a condition for a variance as well. Just to be clear, we did have some conversation about the brownfield aspect of this petition at the previous discussion. I want to be clear that the engineering department is their biggest concern is to make sure that the utilities are going to be installed in an appropriate way in the context of the contaminants that are on site. They haven't been able to conclude that. We hope that they will be able to conclude that and it will not have impacts to the site plan. If for some reason it does, that site plan may have to come back to the Planning Commission if it is refined. So again, I apologize for the back and forth. That's a little bit of explanation of how we were trying to troubleshoot some of those issues over the past few days.
All righty, I think we are moving on then to petitioner presentation for up to 10 minutes. So go ahead.
Hello again. Good to see you.
Hello.
Still Tim Lochran, Robertson Homes, 6905 Telegraph Road, Bloomfield. If Darian Newbecker could be moved up to the panel so he can share the slides, I would appreciate that.
I'm just going to interrupt for a second, too. I'm just noticing that the camera seems to be staring at everybody's chests instead of at their faces, and I'm wondering if there's...
Yeah, I apologize for that. CTN has been working on that. The feed to the public is adequate. You can see
Oh,
from the
I see.
televisions.
Got it.
There's
Okay.
something with the podium feed, so
We'll deal with
the
that,
image that
yeah.
you are seeing is not ideal, but the public is seeing that. I indicated that we could probably live with that since we're in the room.
This is a much better view.
Totally fine. Thank you. Go
All right,
ahead.
thank you. So again, it's great to be back in front of you. We got really good feedback, really great feedback from you last time we were here. We had a really good discussion, as you know, and we took a lot of the feedback to heart, and we made a lot of improvements to the plan. So number of improvements, not the least of which is our promise to go all electric in the for sale section of the development, which, listen, that's very important to you, which means it's very important to us. We've done a lot of research on this. You've gotten us out of our comfort level a little bit, but we've really researched it, and I think we're comfortable with what we're proposing at this point. So again, we're proposing all electric for the for sale section, which is basically the northern half, north of the east-west road for the most part. There's some apartments on the north of that on the east side, but all of the for sale would be all electric. So we're excited about that. We provided further definition of the traffic conditions, and specifically at our Pontiac Trail entrance, so we've worked with traffic on that. We've provided for a covered bus stop with covered bicycle parking. We've worked with the ATA on that. So that would be what we'd be providing on Pontiac Trail at our entrance. We did provide a pedestrian connection to Northside Glen. The road actually did go onto our property, so we're just simply connecting to that existing road. So we were able to work that out with the grades, which is great. I think that's a fantastic addition. We'll be providing contrast lights, and we'll be providing signs for the crosswalk that's existing right now on Pontiac Trail that was put in with the Pulte development, North Sky. We have resolved our issues with solid waste. We've added some information on the site plan, which I think they're amenable to. I know they're amenable to. If things aren't working in the future, there's an alternate plan, but we feel, based on our experience with many other projects that we've built, there will be no issues with solid waste. So we believe we have a resolution to that. We've offered off-site road improvements, which I've outlined in my letter to you. Hopefully you all got our memorandum. We have reduced parking. I know that was certainly something that came up. So we've reduced parking in both the for sale and the for rent areas. So that covers a lot of what we talked about last time. I'd like to go through the slides, but quickly, obviously this time I cut out a bunch of them since you've seen them. I just want to make sure that if there's new people watching, that they know what the project is. If that's okay with you, okay. So Darren, if you could move to the next slide. Darian? I don't know if he can hear me. Do you know if the public can hear?
Yes, he should be able to.
Okay.
Not presenting.
Darian, can you?
He's
you can
talking,
hear okay?
it says. Yeah, it says he's talking.
It's not presenting.
Well,
Jeff, did you receive the PowerPoint? Maybe we could try to pull it up.
oh, here we go.
Oh, okay, great.
You got it. Perfect. So just quickly on the summary, it is 58 acres. That is net of the right-of-way for the and landfill. There's 67 gross acres total. And as we talked about last time, we do have some additional acreage we'll be bringing forth in a future development plan. The master designation is 7 to 10 units per acre. We're within that total. 484 total homes. 164 of those are for sale. Those are the ones that I mentioned would be all electric. And then 324 lease. Essentially attached single-family homes and townhomes, and then a highly amenitized apartment community. 684 up to 1,800 square feet, 1 to 4 bedrooms. So that is the village concept that we see. A lot of different, opportunities and options for people looking to live in this community. So that really has been our goal from the start. Darren, if you can move to the next one, please. Project highlights. Again, multiple entry points. That's what's really important about this. A lot of different options. A lot of open space, 65% open space plus. And new neighborhood connections. So one of the things we talked about last time is there's a direct connection to Leslie Park from Olson Park, which we think is just fantastic. Right now, anybody knows that area knows that it's really difficult to get to Leslie Park, and we think that this really will open up a really great amenity that the city already has. Mix of the residential land uses. Obviously, we're reclaiming a former landfill property, which is a very important part of this component. This is why there's 60-plus acres of land sitting in the middle of Ann Arbor. So we're working very hard to be able to build this in a safe manner, and we've got a very good consultant that's done a lot of work on this. And he's actually available, SME, if there's any questions regarding any of our environmentals. Again, we're going all electric in the for sale, and we're using all energy efficient appliances. Very family oriented plans, like I said, up to 4 bedrooms. So that's something that's surely lacking. High quality owner occupied and amenitized apartment, and I won't talk about the development team this time. So moving on to the next one. So this is the context plan, which I showed you last time. I think what's important about this is we've got basically PUD and R4A all around us. So we certainly are fitting in. Of course, we fit in with the master plan. This has been long planned for something very similar to what we're proposing. So next slide, Darian. And this is the overall site plan. So to the left, just for those who are seeing this for the first time, Pontiac Trail is on the west, which is the left. That's that entrance. It's a long entrance into the property. It's a lot of wetlands there. We're only impacting 0.03 acres of wetland. But you can see there's a lot of wetlands at that location. So we've stayed away from it, obviously not developing in that area. I think it'll be pretty serene entrance into the development, to be honest. And then you come in, you'll see a clubhouse to the right for the rentals. And that actually will be open for the for sale owners as well as part of their HOA dues. On the north side, which is toward the top, that would be the for sale section. Those are townhomes and attached single family. That kind of green area to the right, middle right, that is the landfill area. We're not proposing to touch that. That would be tens of millions, up to $100 million to fix that, and nobody is going to be able to do that. So right now it's a beautiful treed area. We're proposing to leave it that way. We may have some paths in the next version you see of this as we're working with Eagle on how to mitigate any potential issues there, and I think we'll be able to do it. Darian, next slide, please. And again, this is really just, I think, signaling all of the advantages to the property. This is not a PUD, so we're not required to have a public benefit, but we know that this is a very large property. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. We wanted to do the best we could on this property. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but it's important to us to point out that we're providing these connections. We're providing all electric and a portion of it. For providing the bus stop, we're going to have many hundreds of EV chargers in the units and also for guest parking. So we're going to have over a mile of bike and pedestrian paths. This is, I think, a very special project, and this is one that we're very excited about. Next slide, please. And I won't go through all of these. I know this. I showed you this last time, but we took your policies very seriously. And we've gone through this, and we've made a lot of changes to our buildings themselves, the site development, how we're developing it, the types of sustainable items that we're adding, such as solar panels on the clubhouse, solar street lights, As I mentioned, all electric on the northern portion. All of these, I think, are very important to the successful development at this location. So these are all the things that we see in your policies that we're happy to provide on the project. And the next slide, I think there's some product. So just quickly, these are the attached single family. These really are single family homes, about 1,850 square feet, up to 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom and a loft, or 4 bedrooms. And I don't know, I think there's about 100 of these, if I'm not mistaken, 90 to 100 of these, and that's really kind of your northern central corridor there. 2-story, obviously, and they are attached. Darian, next slide, please. These would be the townhomes, so these would also be for sale. It's in that northern section as well. There would be 2-car townhomes and 1-car townhomes, ranging from 1,300 to 1,600 square feet. And Darian, next slide, please. And these would be the apartments. DTN, we're very excited to have them as a partner. If you don't know anything about DTN, they're very well regarded. I'm not sure we'd want to do this with anybody else, so we're very happy to have them on board, and they're a partner on the apartment section to the south. I'm not sure if there's one more slide, and really that's it. So I'd love to speak to you again about the improvements we've made. Any other questions you have since you've last seen me, and I'm happy to have the conversation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Khan, do you have anything to add in terms of a staff report?
One thing I do want to add is that we did receive an email this evening from our transportation group that indicated that they're inclined to ask for a contribution for the construction of a new roundabout at Pontiac Trail in Duvaron, as well as a contribution for potential pedestrian crossings of Pontiac Trail and possibly Duvaron. I do want to add that, as Brett indicated, we are prepared to recommend approval with the 2 conditions that are within the motion. So I'd like to read that staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the proposed R4A zoning because it is consistent with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan land use element and is compatible with zoning in the surrounding area. Staff recommends approval of the site plan and wetland use permit because the project complies with all applicable local, state, and federal ordinances, standards, and regulations, will not cause a public or private nuisance, and will not have a detrimental effect on public health, safety, and welfare. Lastly, I also want to make a commitment to ensuring that our public services group meets quickly with the petitioner to address any of the outstanding issues that exists. So hopefully those items can be addressed and we'll be able to take it on to City Council.
Thank you. Could you clarify a little bit for me anyway? I know in the report they were contributing to a roundabout. Is this, the email that you have, is that in addition to that, or is that just kind of fortifying what was already in there? If you
Right.
could
So what
clarify
the staff report indicates is a willingness on the part of the development team to contribute to the roundabout as part of the non-environmental brownfield costs, which means the developer has listed a number of items that they're willing to put into the non-environmental brownfield, which needs city council approval. And those are dollars that, in essence, the developer would be providing up front, but would be reimbursed over a 10 or 15-year period by the city for those items. The petitioner can certainly summarize what those items are, but they include contributing to a portion of the cost of the roundabout, as well as potential electrification items. But I think the petitioner would be able to summarize those better than I can.
Okay, thank you. We'll get into, I think, go through the public hearing thing, and when we're really in the
Of course.
the mode of talking about it, then we'll get into things like that, I
Sure.
think, so. All righty, so let's have the public hearing for this. This is an opportunity for persons to speak up to 3 minutes about the Village of Ann Arbor site plan and rezoning. We'll first call on individuals that are present, and then remote participants. To speak during the public hearing remotely, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise the hand feature if viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. City staff will select callers that have raised their hands and use the last 3 digits of your phone number. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area. Mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. For either method of participation, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anybody present that would like to speak on this petition?
I'll go first. Hello, my name is Ken Clark. I live at 497 Larkspur Street. I'm only about 1,000 feet south of the development on Pontiac Trail. I bike mostly to get around. I bike to work today and I bike to this meeting. So some of my concerns are specifically about biking with regards to this development and city plans and adopted proposals. However, I'm going to start with something different. I really do like this proposal overall, but having looked through the material today and yesterday that's been updated recently, I'm a little confused about why the developer is talking about air-based heat pumps when most of the recommendations for somewhere like Ann Arbor would be for ground loop heat pumps, which work fabulously in our area. I have a friend who actually has one of those. We have solar. We don't have the heat pump yet. We're working on that. DTE is planning to make their electricity zero emission seemingly before the furnaces in these units would fail. So it seems odd that they would be talking about air-based heat pumps and furnaces when they could be talking about ground loop heat pumps that would work fabulously, and then it would be much closer to zero emission all the way through DTE cleaning up their act. While they're looking at the ground loop heat pumps, what they should, because drilling the ground loop is best done early in the development process, I don't understand why they're not putting solar on a lot more of these roofs. Me and my neighbor both have solar on our roofs, and it's been terrific. We really like it. My bigger concerns, however, about transportation emissions and safety. Transportation emissions are the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Ann Arbor. Our 2 adopted ways to deal with those greenhouse gas emissions in Ann Arbor are VMT reduction, 50% reduction in VMT, and moving to 25% of in-town trips by bicycle. Certainly, all of those efforts shouldn't fall in one development, but it doesn't seem like they're discussing that at all. It would be nice to have some discussion in some other documents about the VMT from this development. Other thing that bugged me is these 2 are 2 diagrams from the traffic study. You can all see those. Okay, that is not Pontiac Trail. That is not Duvarn. Neither Pontiac Trail nor Duvarn have continuous left turn lanes. Both of them have bike lanes. I don't know what they're studying. I mean, these are examples, but this is Pontiac Trail. It has no left turn lanes and it has bike lanes. There's a lot of danger that we have right now with very aggressive driving in this area. I would like to see their traffic study deal with that to some extent, if there's anything they could do to solve those problems. And in part to solve those problems, our lower town mobility study recommended, I'm reading it here, 2 locations along this corridor that would benefit from the construction of roundabouts at the new residential developed Village of Ann Arbor. I saw no discussion of that either. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else present would like to address the Planning Commission on this?
Thank you, Chair Gibrandel. I'm Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. Air source heat pumps are perfectly fine, by the way. I'm sure the petitioner will explain why geothermal is less of a consideration here. My concern is the 320 apartments that will be using gas furnaces. Yeah, all electric for the for sale portion, thank you. But the petitioner has said in the past that high utility bills preclude heat pumps, air source heat pumps, for the 320 apartments. The larger narrative is that affordability and sustainability are not compatible in new construction. This is a false narrative. I call your attention to Exhibits F and G in Mr. Laughlin's August 29th letter. 2 different consultants compared the operating cost of gas and electric appliances. I do not question the computational accuracy since both use the REM rate model, which is a standard model. But a model is only as good as its assumptions. Exhibit F assumes heat pump efficiency of 8.5 HSPF and SEER 14. No one doing high-quality new construction uses such low-efficiency heat pumps. Here's a catalog from Bryant, a major supplier. In this catalog, you can't find a heat pump system, air source heat pump system, below SEER 18 or HSPF 10. So we can ignore Exhibit F, completely irrelevant. Exhibit G does assume high-efficiency heat pumps. And it concludes that on average, tenants will pay on end units will pay $57 or more a month for electric, and interior units $34 more a month. However, this uses DTE's October 2021 gas rate. That rate is now 19% higher. If you plug in DTE's current gas rate, the higher cost of electric versus gas mostly goes away. But even if we take Exhibit G at face value, there's a solution. Installing just 2 kilowatts worth of solar per unit will save tenants $613 a year. Those savings bring every unit in the village to parity or better between electric and gas. And 2 kilowatt solar per unit will only add about $5 per square foot to construction costs before federal tax credits. In conclusion, Exhibit F assumes inefficient heat pumps, and Exhibit G, last year's gas rates. So both overestimate the difference between electric and gas. But even taking Exhibit G at face value, a small investment in solar wipes out the difference. Affordability and sustainability are fully compatible. There is no reason for the village not to go with heat pumps over gas for the entire project. A note about carbon emissions, Exhibit F shows that heat pumps produce, I'm almost out of time, enough to say that I have serious reservations about those calculations as well. They're really off. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
There are positives to putting more than 600 apartments and houses in an area of land which is not being used right now. And there's movement toward less carbon dioxide emission. Better emission, total electrification of the townhouses, but what is absent here is electrification of the rental units. And I agree with him that the figures really underestimate the advantages of electric. And total electrification of the apartments and the houses would include solar. I have solar panels on one of our houses in Chelsea, and we don't pay any electric bills, basically, averaged over the year. And so the advantages of totally electric are in some ways reducing the installation cost, because you don't have to put in the gas pumps, the methane pumps. There is no necessity to install the gas system. Adding solar panels would decrease, even with a modest number of solar panels, it would decrease utilities by over $100 a month. And the payback period for solar panels right now is, some people would say 5 years payback. I think 10 years in our climate is probably better thing. Our old solar panels had a payback period when it cost a lot for the solar panels, more than twice as much as they are now. Our payback period was about 13 years. Okay, so getting that back, after that point, everything is kind of free electricity for that, without having the burden of having paid for the solar panels. Solar panels last for 25 years or so. Usually, that's what the old warranties were for. It would make everything eligible for the federal and the state incentives, and it serves as a good example for the city of Ann Arbor to really work aggressively on the A20 project. This is an opportunity which is like a low-hanging fruit. It's a really good project. It'll be very efficient, and I don't think you should compromise on having only one half of it be electrified. It would simplify everything. It would serve as a great example of the city and serve as an example to other developments too. If they all have to compromise by, we only want to do this, we only want to do this, it kind of takes away some of that streamlining toward low carbon emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, it looks like we are out of people in the room, so is there anybody that is virtual?
There is. James Demore, you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Can you all hear me?
Mr. Demore?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Looks like it might be muted.
Hello? 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 Can anyone hear me? Hello?
Are you muted?
I did. I'm having problems with virtual. One more time, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Sorry for the technical difficulty. If you wouldn't mind starting over.
Okay, sorry about that. I mean, you can't verify and you can hear me now.
We can hear you now.
Okay, thanks. My apology if it's something I've done on my end. Just very quickly, I think I would this commentary. I never do that. Could say the least you can do. I'm going to macros of history, Northeast Area Plan, of which this parcel is part of it. And to say that there are a lot of things in the Northeast Area Plan that Ken Clark and I can attest that probably shouldn't have been built, but here we are. I also say, speaking only for myself, whatever we do here will not present sprawl elsewhere in the township. I should note that Robertson Brothers is planning on a major development in Lodi Township. I think we forget that our actions on housing, we do it only in isolation of Ann Arbor and not in context of the greater southeast region of greater southeast Michigan, the region of Detroit. We are in a regional market, and what we do, we need to look at that in the total context. That being said, a lot of good things I've seen tonight in terms of the process here, and staff has really worked hard in coming up with a good proposal. And I would say of all the major parcels in the Northeast area, this is the one that was the most buildable. And I see something fairly responsible here. But I want to appreciate something Ken Clark brought up previously and other speakers as well. And that is we need to make this entire development all electric. We need to move closer to A20 goals. I think you need to hold the petitioner's feet to the fire to make this project all electric and moving forward to A20 goals and in terms of addressing the climate crisis. This is what I would say is the least you can do tonight. It's a lot of work, and I think there may be some more give and take, but by making it all electric, as other speakers has indicated, I think you're moving forward to set a good example in future projects and future development with the city. All right, folks, good luck, and I wish you a good evening, and thank you for considering my remarks.
Thank you.
Mr. Garton, you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Can I confirm I am audible?
You are audible.
Thank you very much. My name is Hugh Garton. I live at 3080 Cedarbrook Drive, about 1.5 miles from the proposed development. 7 points. 1, under fair assumption, electrification of the apartments in this development would produce nearly comparable costs to gas for the tenants. 2, future gas costs are likely to rise more than electrical costs, making a long-term bargain for tenants better. 3, tenants are in a very poor position to affect change in the future for their own tenements. So please consider your duties to act on their behalf to secure their chance at a carbon neutral living arrangement. 4, while the updated plan is clearly an improvement, it still obligates a very large carbon footprint for likely 30 to 50 years in the future. 5, in a climate emergency, the city, and by extension the planning board, should use all measures at its disposal to minimize the climate impact of new developments. 6, as you've heard, modest additional on-site solar would allow for electrification of the rental sites without great financial difficulty. And lastly, if affordability really is the problem, and the board is determined to move forward with this, then the city should be advised that it should use its tax abatement options or other equalization methods to solve this. The commission could approve with this recommendation to council. Thank you very much for considering my remarks.
Thank you.
Michael Struther, you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
Hello, this is Michael Strother. I want to comment about the contribution to the Rotary. I think this is great. The one thing that I would comment on is that the center of the Rotary itself should not be just paved over. This is a major entry point, and the comments were made previously about this being a traffic calming device. I'd like to see some natural plantings, flowers, and treat this point of entry into the Ann Arbor area as it would deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other speakers have indicated a desire to address the commission.
All righty. Okay, I will read the proposed motions, and I'll read them together. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the Village of Ann Arbor R4A zoning site plan and development agreement subject to the petitioner obtaining a variance for the maximum front setback along Duvarn Road. And the second one is the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the Village of Ann Arbor wetland use permit to allow filling and mitigation of 1,300 square feet of wetland disturbance and on-site mitigation. Should I add a piece about the approved?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I could read
Yes,
the
why don't you
recommended
go
motion.
ahead and do that. Yep, I have the printed out version from when I did it at 5:15.
Okay, the second motion you presented is unchanged. The first motion, we would recommend the following. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the Village of Ann Arbor R4A zoning, site plan, and development agreement, subject to the following conditions prior to scheduling for city council consideration. 1, the petitioner obtaining a variance for the maximum front setback along Duvarn Road, and 2, Public Services Area Engineering and Solid Waste Review and approval, including all outstanding review comments identified in the September 6th, 2022 Engineering Review Number 5 Memorandum, and in the September 1st, 2022 Solid Waste Review, and any subsequent reviews.
All right, moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Lee. We are in discussion. Commissioner Weich.
So one, I just want to start my comments off by thanking the petitioner for hearing us. We say a lot at the table, and sometimes those things are accepted and the development goes ahead with whatever plans the developer had. With the significant changes that you've made to the plan, the addition of the bike lanes, I actually biked up to the site to take a look at it, both from my bike to just also see how it works. So there's going to be a lot of connection that will come through also into the park. The decision for the petitioner to go ahead and electrify the for sale, as well as the inclusion of some solar on the property. So lots to say, and the contribution for the roundabout to do some traffic calming measures in that space. So a lot to say. Thank you for and hearing, and I appreciate the reduction in the parking, but I'm still struck by the fact that 83% of the square footage that is given over to the residential is dedicated to parking when you do just the math on it. I recognize that you feel like that is an appropriate amount of parking for it. I want to acknowledge that our zoning actually has zoned this area of our city in a way that makes it car dependent. I wish you would consider reducing parking further than the 10% you have, maybe to about 25%. I agree with the speakers that have shared, and I think they did a better job than the comments I prepared around the electrification of the rest of the development. And I was particularly concerned around the attachments F and G that looked at those heat source heat pumps. And so I'm appreciative to Mr. Garber for doing some math on that and bringing some information for consideration on how you could achieve it. And then Mr. Clark's comment that came in late to us late this afternoon, asking for solar in there to mitigate the costs. Because when you spoke to us earlier, you were concerned that having a 100 to 20 to 130% increase in the utility costs would make it hard for you to lease those units. And it looks like the math, there's some space in there to get to parity on that. And so I just want to start my comments by just asking again for complete electrification. And then I did have one specific question for you, which when I read through your memo back to us, let me just try to full screen this. Okay, there we go. They don't have page numbers, but it's before Exhibit A. You have in red the recommendations from the Office of Sustainability and Innovation around the compost. And I wasn't clear whether the apartment dwellers could participate in compost. So that was just a question as I was reviewing everything that wasn't apparent to me. You can reply,
Sure.
I think. I think this is the time where we get to talk to you.
So specifically those questions, and again, I appreciate your comments, and I believe this is a kind of a iterative process, and I think that's just makes for a better project. In regard to the parking, I understand your comment. We can certainly look at that. We took out 10%, which for us is a lot. I think in my mind, what's really driving the number is the fact that there's driveway parking in front of a lot of those units, particularly all of the attached two-story, and that just really drives up the numbers. Now, I could, say, you can't park in that area, but I mean, it just seems to be a single-family thing to have parking in front of those units. Really no street parking, so the opportunity for guests is in front of the house. So I think that skews the numbers is what I'm getting to. So we'll take a look at it. Obviously I want to move forward if we can with approval. And of course we can look at some areas that maybe we could reduce a couple of. I think 25% would be way overly ambitious for us to do. But I'm willing to take a look at that as we move forward. So I don't know if that's clear enough, but I understand your concern and appreciate it. Agreeing with the neighbors on the apartment electricity, there's, I guess the way to answer that is there's only so much we can go with a project. And I think we've gone farther than we normally would have. We appreciate your goals. At this point, this is our direction, and this is our proposal. So this is how we want to move forward. We do have an expert on Zoom, but I don't know if we need to go into specifics on it. You know, in all costs have gone up. Gas has gone up, of course. Everything's gone up. Electricity's gone up. So to say that we were skewing the numbers because of that, everything's gone up in costs, you know, in the past year. So I think that that's a relevant comment. You know, additionally, you know, the technology isn't quite there yet, and we do recognize that. We recognize that it's getting there, which is why we're proposing the for sale. Jennifer Granholm has a cold climate heat pump challenge, recognizing that the technology just isn't there yet, and we need to work at it as, you know, together as a team. We're actually involved with that initial meeting on that. So, you know, high-end cold compression heat pumps with variable speeds, you know, we've done a lot of research on it. The costs just are more, and I think that there was even acknowledgement that, but for the change in gas and electricity costs, which again, all costs have gone up. So our proposal is exactly what we have in front of you at this point. As far as the compost, we weren't proposing it for the apartments. We do have it for the for sale. So again, that is something that's part of our plan at this point, is no compost for the apartments, but we would have it for all of the for sale.
So just coming back to the compost, is there any way you would consider doing something in the clubhouse where, I understand that part of it may be where does it get collected and then where does it get picked up?
Yes.
But you have a clubhouse, and so just making it available to the apartment dwellers or those who are leasing their home to be able to have a place where they could dispose of the compost.
So within the clubhouse building itself?
You've been very clear, it's your development.
Yeah.
I am not the developer. I am just here doing my job, which is to ask for things and ask questions and to clarify, and so that's it. So it's up to you where you want to put it, but if there would be a place for your apartment dwellers to participate in the compost, that just helps with, you know, our overall stewardship of the resources that we have.
Yeah, it is. It really is a space limitation. So
Sure.
again, we're looking at, you know, if we look at the parking, we can look at those areas as well, see if there's something we can expand the existing enclosure to see if we can add some composting to it. So I'm happy to do that again. I want to move forward if at all possible, but we can certainly look at these items. I don't think that those are out of the question.
Sure. I'm good.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Ditch.
Oops. Yeah. Thank you for coming back to us with as much as you have come back with. I did read in your letter that the reason you're not providing compost for the apartment dwellers is because they're not maintaining their own lawns, and so you don't, and also it's not a service that the city consistently provides to multifamily apartments. But I did want to toss in that one of the things that's unique about Ann Arbor is that you can compost your table scraps, including meat bones. I have composted dead rabbits. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to do that, but I have done it. I didn't kill them myself, but so I think that there could be a call for composting, and where single-family composting is picked up, where you can have carts, the city can pick up from apartments. And so, I mean, it's possible as long as there's a route. And since there is a route, and your apartment dwellers could opt to use carts, they might not all opt in or whatever, it would be great to think about offering them compost. It's one of those problems where, because we haven't universalized the service, we're not really able to ask people to accommodate in their site plans composting. But as you know, because you're mitigating a fair amount of methane on that site, we like to try to keep food out of the landfills. And I want to express just just a bit of, I just feel like my head is spinning and I don't know what to do about it because I'm getting different numbers, right? And I don't know how to adjudicate among those numbers that, a little bit more solar, these costs can be comparable. If the barrier, and I understand why the barrier for you would be that if it's an increased cost, that puts you at a market disadvantage for your rentals. So I understand where you're coming from. I wish there were a way for me to have a report, and this isn't on you. I wish there were a way for me to have a report evaluating the different options that would be open to you and telling me if indeed our residents who often speak to us about these matters, if their calculations are correct. Because, I wish that we had a way to persuade you that it wouldn't be more expensive, because we can't require this of you. We can only ask it of you. You have come really far to meet us, and I just really, really wish that we weren't going to have 320 units that are gas-powered if it's financially feasible for them to be electrified. And, we know DTE is going slower towards green energy, but it is moving in that direction. There are many different things that the city may do to actually get us on green power much sooner than DTE projects. So I'm really at a loss. I don't know what to do about this conversation, and maybe there's no way to pursue it because we don't have the regulatory authority, and you are doing an awful lot on this plan, on this thing. I'm just expressing that because I don't want to be silent in the face of what our sustainability plan is asking for and what our residents are asking for. I did want to mention that there is in the staff report, which I believe was only uploaded today, there is a mention of the roundabout, and the city has applied for a U.S. Department of Transportation grant for the roundabout, and the money that Robertson is offering through the Brownfield TIF strategy would help the city meet the difference between what we can get from the DOT and what it will take to do the roundabout. The thing that is a little bit heart-sinking is that this would be programmed for the 2026-2027 construction season, the roundabout would. And that's a little bit heart-sinking because it is as unsafe as you say, Mr. Clark. So it's a long time to wait. And this has nothing to do with your development, right? It's not your fault, and you're sort of coming at the end of a lot of added housing, and you are offering to help us build a roundabout, which is really great. But I wish that in the meantime, the traffic report does mention that a four-way stop would increase the delay for traffic on Pontiac, and it would be only a marginal improvement for the people on Duvarn. But something breaking the very swift passage of traffic from US 23 to the intersection of Barton and Pontiac would be nice. And a stop sign, to wait, another 4 years for the construction of a roundabout, a four-way stop there would, it seems to me, be nice to have. And I don't think that this is the place at this table to bargain for it, but I will just put that out there, and I did want to, because you wondered what was happening with that, and I wanted to answer that. So I don't know if anyone else feels the way I'm feeling about the numbers, or if anyone wants to offer me some wisdom so I can sleep well tonight.
Other discussion? Commissioner Sauvé.
For electric, I think we put a lot on. I appreciate all the work that's been done. I'll just kind of add the comments maybe to the commission and to the public that like, there's been a lot of work, I believe on your end to resolve some of the electric. My understanding from engineers I work with on a day-to-day is at this point, it doesn't make financial sense to proceed with gas. That's their like status quo feedback. And so we're proceeding with most of our, our projects in our office with electric. With the caveat of, certain conditions, restaurants are very hard to go all electric with the load and things like that. But, so I'll just kind of put that out there. Like, I understand the amount of other efforts that have gone into improving this development since last time we've seen it. And so I would like to see, this move forward. And so if electric is an opportunity in the future, I know we've talked, in two parts about this, it seems in the conversation. One is about the systems that you install, and two is about the sourcing of energy for those systems, right? And for gas systems, you can't really kind of flip the switch. Electric systems, you can flip the switch from what DTE is doing. They've converted most of their sourcing from coal to gas. Now asking them to convert from gas to, sustainable sources is the next step, which from my understanding, they're actually a little behind, not ahead on, in terms of 2030 goals. So in terms of when the replacement comes and things, I do ask, you evaluate solar and some of those other opportunities, in the near future. And I think things, like all electric appliances are very easy, and that really we're talking about the mechanical systems here. So I know it's not everything we want. I think the amount of housing, the amount of improvements to connectivity and things, I feel comfortable proceeding. So I'm just going to put those comments out. On my side of things. I do have questions, I guess, about the methane, and if you have any initial comments about, like, how are you containing all of the utilities? Is it like concrete cast, double conduit? Like, what is that starting to look like on your end? Like, how are you working through that right now?
So I guess the easy answer to that, or not the easy answer, the quick answer to that is our consultants, who obviously are experts at this, don't believe that there would need to be any kind of special liners or special construction methods, particularly for the sanitary. So that is what their analysis is. Obviously, we need to get the city departments comfortable with that. And if there is, a discussion on maybe engineering controls in, targeted areas, we can certainly discuss that. But our consultant is essentially saying, there's methane in sanitary sewer lines to begin with. So, and then the homes would have passive venting systems, and obviously the existing venting systems for the utilities just that a normal house has. So I can have Brett Stuntz if you want a more detailed answer than that. But from an initial standpoint, they're comfortable, and again, they're the experts, and they have everything on the line as well. They're comfortable with the existing utilities as designed in those areas. We're not very high on methane. I mean, it is very low. The readings are very low. I think we've got 5 hits that are above that elevated 5%. And those are areas we can discuss. But generally speaking, they don't have any concern with that. So if you wanted Brett Stuntz, he's on the line. But he'll probably bore everybody, because he usually bores me. So
I'll leave it to somebody else to call him back. I just wanted kind of an update, because it was new, in-depth context for us. So I just wanted to see what the progress was and where you.
And certainly, I mean, we respect the city departments and we want them to be comfortable. So there's no issue with being able to resolve this moving forward. My initial thought on this was this really is more of a final engineering question and issue to resolve. So I'm comfortable with the condition. I wish it would apply to the final engineering and not to city council, but we will have a meeting soon and we'll discuss these things. And I don't have any concern that there'll be issues.
Okay. I guess 2 other comments. One, which is, I guess I'll jump forward because this is on top of my mind. The future site plan.
Yes.
I asked last time about the entry in to the development jogs a little bit because of the wetlands to the adjacent development. And I understand, right, like we're negotiating between wetlands versus vehicular kind of conflict points. For the future development, have you done any schematics? And just, is there another curb cut out to the street, or is it internal connection?
No, it would be the same connections. We're really stuck with our connections.
Okay.
There's no way to get, I mean, we could build a bridge, but there'd be no need, no reason to do that south of our existing entrance on Pontiac Trail. There's just a wetland complex that it's impossible to go over. So really the future development that you're going to see, most of it will be concentrated on that area, if you remember the site plan, the very north up to Duvarn. So that would be where the future development would be.
Okay. And then my other, which is maybe more of a note, because we've seen all of these developments, come one by one. It's
Yes.
very hard to plan. But, as you get going, being a good neighbor and finding connections between each of these neighborhoods, I think really leans into the bikeable, walkable, that we don't have to go onto these heavy traffic patterns, that there are neighborhoods to actually bike through,
Yes.
to really cut through between each one. But right now, we're developing isolated neighborhoods that all reach out onto it instead of reach into each other's kind of backyards and roads. So as you get going, if you find connection points to engineer and cut across property lines to merge those streets, I think that's a fantastic, movement forward for, the whole area up here. The more developers can work together to connect,
No, I agree completely.
interconnect plots would be great.
Okay.
The last one, I'll just make kind of a comment to the parking. I appreciate kind of the removal of parking. Again, I'll just kind of say to my justification, I don't have too much issue with the stacked parking. More recently, we applauded stacked parking as a way to count it when we had parking minimums. But because those curbs, to the driveways really land into the street, that becomes paved area. It's like sidewalk chalk and a place to learn how to ride a bike and for toys to spill out from the garage and things like that. So at least I try to paint the best and worst case, which is it's full of cars and there's no places for people. And then the best case, which is there's actually a lot of kids using all of these driveways for activity merged together. But with that, again, it's partly with operations too, and helping all of the residents understand either of those things could happen, and everybody needs to be responsible and maintain sightlines and safety and speeds, that we have a whole lot of different occupants on these roads, and that it really blurs together. So again, I'm just kind of making the statement and observation. I'm not asking for anything here. But I'm saying it because I really do appreciate what you've brought back from those comments. It sounds like you're, learning a lot from, I think, a lot of our goals here.
Yes.
And so if anything, we've seen a lot of these things that you can kind of take them and reflect back on future developments too. And so it's just, an iterative conversation. So
No,
thanks
it's funny you say that because, we have started applying this to other projects that we're doing. And some of the other cities have obviously kind of, moved toward some of these goals as well. So it's interesting to, get involved with it and understand it. So we appreciate
please,
it.
if we don't see electric in these apartments, put electric in the developments that aren't asking for them. Okay.
I'm writing it down.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Thank you. So I have one specific question, and then I have just some comments I wanted to make. So I think I saw on the slide for the second time, because I remember seeing it the first time too, over 500 EV chargers.
Yes.
How is that distributed?
Yes, so each unit, which, with 484, has one in it. So, that's kind of the bulk of it. We do have 36 for the guest parking. A lot of that's concentrated in the apartment area and around the clubhouse. But that is what that's in reference to. So each individual garage, and all of the apartments will have an attached garage as well. So each garage will be EV ready.
EV ready, but
Yes.
not the actual charger.
That's correct.
So so first of all, can you do me a favor and on that slide? It's incredibly misleading.
Okay.
It says over 500 EV chargers. So that, I read in the staff report, so I knew that wasn't true, but that's
Well, that
change
is
that.
completely my fault. I apologize.
So in the apartments, who would be responsible for putting the EV chargers in those garages?
It would depend on what system, obviously, they need, but it would be on the lessee. Now, I can imagine that, moving forward, if it's there, they would could potentially stay for future residents. But that would be the intent. We don't know exactly what system they're going to be using, so we obviously wire it for EV ready.
Okay. I mean, I guess I would also, I don't know a whole lot about tax credits from the bill that was just signed, but I'm pretty sure EV chargers were included in that. So, I mean, you might be able to take advantage of getting them for super cheap and just having them installed and,
we'll
bumping up.
I fully agree.
Okay.
I'm sorry about misleading it. It's
okay. It's just the second time I saw it and I was like, wait, I don't think there's actually 500 chargers.
No.
I want to echo, my colleagues' comments about the listening that you did and the work and the research and everything that you've clearly put into this. And, when I hear you talk about this project, and one of the things that I appreciate is that it really seems like your vision is for this, one neighborhood that has different price points and different options for people. It's, it's great to have the apartments. It's great to have the for sale units, different sizes, different price points. But I'm also seeing sort of this like dichotomy where you've got apartments on one side and you have for sale units. We have all electric and we have gas, we have composting and we have not composting. And so I guess I would just encourage you to think about how in practice you can make this feel like one cohesive, like villagey neighborhood. It'd be great if it was all electric, but I think we've kind of, beaten that to death a little bit. I am really happy that you said that the clubhouse is going to be open to all residents.
Yes.
That's great.
Good.
And then a couple of things you said struck me that I just wanted to kind of also comment on. They're good things. They're good things. You said that you were pushed out of your comfort zone in doing this project. That's what we want. Like it's a new way of development, but it's what we need to be doing as like a standard for all development. I think, this thinking about sustainability and thinking about, another thing is like talking about gas versus electric apartments versus for sale, like there's health implications of gas. Like we're not thinking enough about like the health of people that live in places and get around places. With combustion appliances, if they're not using the fans, they're not opening the windows, like it can exacerbate asthma. So there's just, again, like going back to sort of this dichotomy. There are things that people typically don't think about with development. So I think it's great that you're getting pushed out of your comfort zone. I hope that you share what you're learning with other developers. I'm glad to hear that, you said that you're looking at doing this in other projects, because you also said you appreciate your goals, meaning the city of Ann Arbor. We're not a bubble. Like this needs to be goals for everybody. I know you know that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to call that out because I think, we're at a point, we're probably past the point where, everybody in the development field needs to be thinking about like, how do we do things differently? We have a climate crisis. We have like health crisis that are stemming from the ways that our cities are designed and our buildings are designed. And so this is like the point where we can really push the envelope. So I'm glad you were pushed out of your comfort zone. I really appreciate all of the listening that you've done. I'm excited. I support this project, but I just encourage you sort of look at how to make it more holistic feeling, like a real neighborhood, and not, I just worry that you've got this road and there's apartments and there's for sale units, and like how can we make it sort of a little bit more like one neighborhood rather than.
So I think that's a really good comment. What you don't see is the marketing efforts we're making as far as branding it and how we're going to connect through, wayfinding and signage and things like that. So we're certainly thinking that on the next level. It is difficult. I mean, it's really hard to put pods together like that. But, having the walkways through and then having this branding effort, where our hope is that will kind of add to that cohesive you're talking about. So I appreciate the comment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mills?
Thanks. I think commissioners have talked about lots of the different things that were on here, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse either, but you just talked about marketing.
Yes.
And I think that thinking about the kind of clientele who would rent an apartment that has a garage that is wired for electric vehicle charging, I would really encourage you to think about who those people are. They're probably going to be people that are participating in My Green Power, who want to have, who are willing to pay potentially in the very short term what might be a premium, but in the long term, given the price fluctuations of the cost of natural gas, I do not think actually that those numbers will hold up all we have to do is look to Europe right now to see kind of what happens with the price of natural gas. The cost of renewables is built in when you construct it. You know what the cost is going to be in the future. Related to that, and as you're thinking about it, and I don't know at what point you talk to the utilities about your connection, making sure that you're sizing, I mean, what I understand in order, it's not just the charger in the garage, like you have to make sure that the electrical box can handle, right?
Yes.
The draw of allowing for EV charging, that's much cheaper. Based on when we wrote the EV ordinance in the city, talking to DTE, that's much easier early on. And for this many chargers, that could be a substantial, that could require substantial upgrade. Thinking about how solar might actually allow, additional solar might allow that connection to be smaller, could be something to just put on your radar. Similarly, if the rental units ever do electrify, and I agree with the caller that it's much hard, like, the for sale units have more autonomy kind of in their mechanical systems. And so if I had to choose, I would put the electric heating in the rental units because of that lack of autonomy there. I would just think about that when you're thinking about what the size of your connection is. And some of the interconnection costs. It's way cheaper now than it is down the road, and particularly for whoever the owners of those buildings will be.
Right, and obviously we're going to own the apartments, so it is important to us to think about the future. So certainly, for replacement, I do believe that those costs will come down to where it makes sense, and so we do want to plan for the future with that. So that is no question about it. We would be having those discussions early on.
Yeah, sizing your making sure that whatever connection you get to the grid there is sized for that. Want to look at those numbers. And again, within the context of marketing, like this would be one of the first the rental opportunities in Ann Arbor that could, where you could promise not only bike lanes and connections to the park, but having an all-electric building. The question that I had, and I wasn't at the last meeting, I watched it, but the meeting is about the roundabout, and maybe this was covered then, but the lower town, I appreciate the comment or two bringing up the lower town mobility study. Was that discussed, staff? That specifically, I mean, the village of Ann Arbor is called out here within the study for inclusion of a roundabout.
So the study did call out for inclusion of a roundabout as a way to mitigate the multiple challenges at the Pontiac Trail Duvarn intersection. Staff is looking for federal dollars to construct the roundabout, and has applied for a grant that we hope to hear back from in about a year or two about whether we are going to qualify for that grant. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm wondering if we're talking about the same roundabout, because at least the way that I read this, like I think what I understood was this is a discussion about Pontiac Trail, the intersection of Pontiac Trail and Duvarn, but my reading of the study suggests that it's on Barton at the new residential development. That's what this reads. It says Pontiac Trail at Moore, at Barton Drive, it's on Pontiac Trail at the new residential development, parentheses, Village of Ann Arbor, located north of Skydale Drive.
It's my understanding that is not a roundabout that Public Services has requested grant dollars for, that the roundabout is for the Pontiac Trail Duvarn intersection.
I'm just confused since this is a brand new development, like how it's connecting into the streets. If we had a plan that came out in March 2022 that specifically calls for it. Did this come up at all in your discussion with?
So my understanding of it is that having it at the Duvarn intersection would slow down the traffic and kind of suffice for what that plan had called for. I'm not a traffic expert either, so we do have our traffic consultant on board on Zoom if it's something, you know, that she could speak to, or if, I don't know if the traffic engineer with the city. But yeah, we've worked out kind of the geometrics of our entrance. There's really not much room there because of the wetlands, because of the development to the north of us, and because of, you know, Pulte's to the west. It doesn't really fit. I agree, this is a recent study, so it is confusing. But I do know that our plan as it is existing or designed today is essentially what traffic had asked us to do. We had a third lane that went, that continued north through there. That was important. But we didn't really have the room to put in a roundabout.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad. In watching the previous meeting, I think that there was a lot of discussion, or I thought the discussion was about at Barton. Maybe not. I'm seeing some nods head yeses and some nods no. I don't know. It's that one, and then, sorry, and I should have finished I can't talk tonight. Started teaching too early this morning. 4 locations, and the last one on the list is then at Duvarn Road. So I think that this is distinct. It seems like it was distinct. Anyway, it's suggested as this is not an either or. There are 4 locations that would benefit, and this is one of 4 in addition to the other. So yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that. It's especially because we put a lot of money into planning. And to see this as a recommendation and less than 8 months later, to have that very development included where I haven't seen discussion, it doesn't sound like that was discussed, is odd to me. So I don't want to stand in the way of that. I would suggest maybe Commissioner Dish that when this goes on, or in between here, I'm just not sure what to make of this.
Commissioner Dish?
Yeah.
So I feel I am still confused. So, yeah, my understanding is that, this roundabout that we are talking about now is at Pontiac and Duvarn. Yes, that was one of the sites in the Lower Town Traffic Study. Barton is unfeasible. Right. We can't get the right-of-way for it. So, and then I think they mentioned in the Lower Town Traffic Study, possibly there was another one in between, but I mean, how many roundabouts can we budget for? They're expensive. So, I mean, this development gives us the opportunity to get one at Duvarn and Pontiac if we get this federal grant, which it seems incredible to me that it takes 2 years to even hear about the grant, right? And so this would be, that was what was in the staff memo about the possibility of 2026 for traffic relief that we have needed for the last, not during the COVID year, but we need it again. So I'm not sure. So what you're worried about is?
Well, it's that the study suggests 4 locations, including the one that it sounds like Barton is infeasible, but that is on the list. Mm-hmm. This specific, the connecting a new residential development, Village of Ann Arbor here, is on the list, in addition to Duvarn, and then also Moore Street and Longshore Street, the kind of connect, like the intersection with Pontiac Trail. So I know that there was discussion south of this. I know, clearly, improvement north of this makes sense. That's already a thing. But because we're making a new connection here, it seems odd to not have that discussion about the feasibility of that at this point, because it hasn't been connected yet. And so I feel like now is kind of our opportunity to understand if it's infeasible. Anyway, I see other hands about
Commissioner Clark?
I just wanted to mention with the Barton one, it's a little bit a side note that I believe that it wasn't that it was infeasible, it was that they would impact the level of service, which is just the measure of like how many cars pass through and how quickly. So the Lower Town study does mention it, and I don't know if we want to write that off right away as infeasible. I view that as priorities, but anyway.
Commissioner Sauvé.
I might have lightly alluded to this in terms of the conversation we had last time about the staggered entries for the development to the west on Pontiac Trail. So that was our conversation from last time, was trying to line those up. So at least there was kind of the sight lines and an intersection instead of the kind of staggered. And that discussion from last time was a lot about the wetlands and the mitigation and the clearances and the right-of-way available. So we did have a discussion really at that intersection of the entry along Pontiac Trail for this development relative to even slightly shifting it, what a roundabout would look like, the amount of footprint for it, the extension for bus stop, bike lane, sidewalk, all along that area. So that was part of the conversation last time, was that intersection, if that's helpful. And a lot of it was maybe in the Lower Town study, not understanding the extent, of the survey for the wetlands, from that high level that was then taken into account once they actually got onto this parcel and were able to do the full survey and were able to deem it not feasible relative to the wetlands. So that's what I took away, at least from the last conversation when we talked about that intersection.
And that's my understanding too. Our traffic consultant is online if you wanted to have her speak. So, Julie Kroll.
Sure. Why don't you ask her?
I texted her, so she said yes. So we can get Julie Kroll. There she is.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. So I couldn't see the name tags on the commissioners, but the last one that just spoke was correct. And so that is why we can't put a roundabout there. Brett, can I share my screen? Again.
In a moment you can. Hold on.
This might be helpful.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So this is how the driveways are. Our property is here on the top of this is our site access. This is the North Sky development to the south, not south, but it's the east, or the west, sorry. So when we had looked at trying ideally to align these driveways, that's when we could have potentially looked at a roundabout. The problem was we have these wetlands right here, and there's significant fall between this driveway that's proposed here and the existing driveway here. So that's really where we have the issue. So from a planning level, ideal world, that would be great. But when we got into the engineering and started designing the access, that this really was not feasible to relocate this driveway, and this one had already been constructed. So mitigations that we put in here to help kind of offset and provide pedestrian connections. We have new pedestrian connection. We're putting in some additional signage here. A rectangular rapid flashing beacon will be installed here to promote connectivity, but the roundabout really wasn't a feasible option because of the wetland issue.
Thanks. I was that really helps, and having the picture helps. I will confess that I'm still confused a little bit because based on the Lower Town study, it doesn't suggest that this would intersect at Skydale. It suggested that the intersection, the proposed roundabout, would be located north of Skydale. So, but seeing where the wetland comes up to the road, like maybe that is the explanation. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about it, especially because this is a relatively new planning document. And again, all of these improvements, I think it's a mess here right now. So all of these improvements are important. If there's any other opportunity, I just want to make sure that we've exhausted all of the permutations here and not decided that this one roundabout is the right thing rather than thinking kind of holistically about that. But it sounds like there's lots of things that were considered here. So Thank you.
Commissioner Weich. Oh, sorry, Commissioner. I don't know who is next.
Oh, if Commissioner Weiss has something to build off of that, that's
go ahead, Commissioner Lee. You haven't spoken yet.
Sure. Actually, one of the things that I actually wanted to voice was one of the commenters, I think it was Ken Clark, regarding the figures. It's on page 38 of the traffic impact study report. It's figure 9 through 11, and it's really, since we're on the topic of the positive offset on that, it does reflect a center turning lane, and when you look at it, that isn't the case. So just wanted to make sure that was revised. I don't want it to mislead, since it's basically talking about a potential conflict if people are turning into that lane, but that's the wrong assumption. So just wanted to make sure that was updated. And I'm gonna, now that I've kind of talked on that, I'm just gonna talk overall. I appreciate all the efforts, and I also appreciate all of the public's comments on this. This is obviously, we have to talk about our priorities and the climate emergency that we are in. So my comment last time was talking about strengthening non-motorized transit, and I think a lot of the improvements that you've done have done that. So porosity, making sure that we have, again, pathways through. I'm going to echo Commissioner Salve's comments with respect to coordinating with other neighborhoods. I'm sorry to hear you didn't were able to connect with the North Side Glen, but if you could keep trying, that would be great.
On that.
Right. So, no, I would love to see, again, greater connectivity. Yep. I like the addition of the covered bus stop, yes, as well as, again, with the new AATA or triple ATA millage and the potential improvements in the next 5 years that we'll see.
Yes.
We want to increase the likelihood that people are, leveraging, taking buses, and so providing for that porosity in bike lanes as well as connectivity to Leslie Park is really important. Again, the traffic impact study, if you could just make sure that is actually, it's page 38 and 41. Overall, again, just talking about the imbalance of housing to jobs in Ann Arbor, and creating reduction of VMT also is considered through the lens of providing more trip generation locations closer to job attractions. So I think in that, this is doing well. I would love to see, obviously, all attempts towards creating, electrified opportunities for specifically the apartment rentals as well. But again, overall, I think you've done a magnificent job of grappling with the concerns we voiced last time. So I do feel that while we tackle some of these smaller nuances, that those could be done, while you guys are on your way to City Council. So thanks for, again, everybody's feedback on this is very important. This is a massive development, so we want to make sure to get it right and leave no stones unturned. So thank you for grappling with our comments last time.
Commissioner Weich.
Just wanted to come back to something that was in my notes that I forgot to bring up in my initial comments was thank you for including the consideration of the bike share. So actually just piggybacking off of Commissioner Lee's comment. And then just wanting to put a recommendation to, as you think about that bike share, electric bikes, as well as electrified cargo bikes, so that if the residents that are there in the leased or units, they can then take trips to the grocery store without having to make a car trip. That is going to be a good outcome.
Yeah,
and
no,
so
that makes a
just
lot of
wanted
sense.
to put that into the mix.
Cool. Will do.
Commissioner Lee.
I have one kind of side practical question. Are there going to be any kind of fail-safes or redundancies? What happens if there's a massive power outage in the area? Are you planning on offering for the for sales? This is kind of a larger just question of grid resilience in general. We just had a big power outage last week, Tuesday, I think, that we saw. So just with respect to, are there any considerations that you're making of, from generators, things of that nature, which actually require connection to natural gas. But for electric, I think it's something that we have to consider regarding fail-safes, just given our grid in the condition that is in. So whether it's solar batteries that are retaining, backup power, whether, so my question is, has consideration been given to that from the for sale electrified units? It's something I think we all need to grapple with.
Yeah, no, I think that's another concern that we've had. So that was certainly something we've talked about, and I don't think we have an answer on how to address that. So it's part of the learning process as we move forward. I agree. It's a concern.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abrams.
Hi. I'm kind of reluctant to speak because I feel like I have a different tone. But maybe it seems like there's enough support for the project that I won't sink it. So I just want to say, I think I'm frustrated that it takes like 9 volunteer commissioners and amazing members of the public so much time to just, what I think is like, it's like pulling teeth or like dragging the development community through the mud to try to get you, and I don't mean this directly at you, but at so many of the developers that we see come here towards this, like to kind of, I think, just be responsible for a shared problem. Like it's not, the climate crisis is not our problem, like the commission's problem or the city's problem, right? It's everybody's problem. And so like we're not, I don't know, it just feels like we're not even asking for really radical stuff. We're not asking for passive house standards or asking to, talk about the embodied carbon of the project. But like, I think as anybody who works on putting, anything to do with building construction, we are responsible for a massive amount of carbon emissions. And I just think we need to do something about that. And so it just seems like something that people should be voluntarily doing, particularly if it is going to, in the very near future, make financial sense, even maybe by the time this is actually under construction. So it's it just feels very frustrating to me. And so while I also, am appreciative of the things which are in the project, I think we set our standards super low. So that's how I'm feeling. And so, and like I want more housing in Ann Arbor. I think I'm frustrated that in order to get it, I think we have to make so many concessions to other things that are really important to us. So that's all. Thanks.
I agree with you. I'm frustrated with this too. I guess part of what I think is difficult is that Ann Arbor has declared this climate emergency, and that we have to, acting on an emergency is different than acting in our normal lives. And I think what we're trying to do is sort of get people to act like it's an emergency. And I think what's happening is that people are taking small steps, which is what we tend to do as human beings. Like really, if we stop and think about our daily lives, we don't want to have like a massive amount of change in our daily lives, right? It's comfortable, right, to kind of keep going forward as normal. And I think what we're, it feels like this burden is somewhat on our shoulders because we are part of the process of making these things happen. And we know that we don't really have a lot of control over it, but we are trying to push and inspire people to be able to take somewhat of a bold step. And I think part of my frustration as well is that I see other people doing this in other places. And so it's not like going to the moon or going to Mars or going to Neptune or something like that. It is happening. So that's the thing I think that is hard. It's not necessarily, it hasn't happened in your company, right? And so that's part of like what's so uncomfortable is like, whoa, who are our vendors? How does this work? What happens when the power goes out? There's all these unknowns. And for a big organization, it's like, whoa, how do we handle this? This feels uncomfortable. And I think we have to feel uncomfortable with where we are. I think that's part of what's so hard. And this may be a little hard, I don't know. Here's a chance to tell your kids you really did something. And it's hard for all of us, I think, to be able to really look at our lives and this is getting personal in a way that we don't usually get personal, but it's like, this is it. We're like teetering in a lot of ways with what we're doing, and we just can't do business as usual. And so we're in this really awkward position where we can't really make people do things. We want to be able to inspire people to do things, and we also want to kind of push people along too. It's tough place, I think, for us to be. I think we're all uncomfortable with the position that we're in terms of what we can really ask people to do. And you have done a lot. There's been people up here that have just stood up there and said, "Oh, sorry, this isn't my gig." And so I really do, I want to acknowledge the things that you all have been doing, because I think that's really important. And that, taking a modest step is still taking a modest step. Some people don't want to take any step at all, because the margins are thin, it's hard to get through our system, it's really expensive. I get it. That's part of the puzzle of how you're making all this stuff work.
Right.
So I feel kind of hamstrung. I feel frustrated. I would love it if people embraced what we were asking them to do, but I also understand that it's also difficult to get big ships to turn.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the development community is a really big ship, and there's just procedures and ways that people have done things and relationships that people have with how they do business, and that this is a big change. So I feel like I can't really do a whole lot in terms of what the tools that we have in front of us. But I share the frustration of just that I feel like we need to be acting like we're in an emergency too.
Yeah.
And that the more people stick their toes out of the comfort zone and sort of test things, the more that it's easier for us to be able to say to other people, hey, it's okay. Other people are trying this, and we really need some good local examples, basically, of this like working out okay for people.
Right.
So we hope that you can be that. I understand that you're kind of saying this is what we're doing too. And that you can't make all decisions. There's a lot of other people behind you as well.
Right.
So that's all to say that this is kind of a big opportunity for us here too, because it's a lot of houses.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of houses. And I think that's a good thing for a lot of reasons. And it would just be amazing if you all stepped up to the plate in that full way to be able to really take it on and show that it can be done, because I think it can. I think that there's just been enough other places that are making it happen. And I think part of why it's happening in other places is that it's the North Star from the beginning of the design process. And when that happens, then you're designing everything around that, so that then adding the electric you're doing kind of passive house stuff, and you're thinking about orientation and stuff like that is kind of driving a lot of design too, and it's harder to tack things on kind of further into the design process. And so I think the other places where this is happening, that's part of how it's happening, is that people have that orientation from the very start, and that it's a lot harder after you get this far into the regulatory process to just say, oh, we're doing this other thing here too. So anyway, I don't know if this changes anything in terms of how I'm, what I'm going on my diatribe about, but I'm frustrated with this too. I feel like, again, there's a lot of good things about this, and it would just be amazing if it could kind of really take it to the next level. All I can do is just ask and hope that you would be inspired to be able to be that group that would be willing to stick their necks out to really think about what that means in terms of what it looks like to be able to do that.
Well, I feel you both. I understand exactly how you're feeling, and I appreciate it, obviously. It's awkward for us too, because there's policies, but there's also, we're not asking for a PUD.
Right.
But it is a large project, and there's a lot of stakeholders involved. So, we do see this as for us going, above and beyond. I know it's not enough for you, I get that. But we do think that, what we're proposing certainly gets moving forward in a direction that a lot of other developers wouldn't do on this site. And, that to us is important. And we're doing this really, outside of maybe what, you can force us to do. So, I feel you, I understand what you're saying. I do appreciate it. And, we'll look at some of these other items. But yeah, we do need to move forward with our project.
Anybody else? Okay. I guess we are on to a vote, correct?
All right, so it's both motions as read. This is the approval of the zoning with the 2 conditions to resolve all engineering and solid waste comments prior to scheduling for city council, as well as the condition of the variance, as well as the recommendation of the issuance to the wetland use permit. As a reminder, because this is corresponding with a legislative decision, the rezoning, the site plan will also progress to the city council for consideration. Commissioner Mills.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibrandal.
Yes.
Commissioner Sauvé.
Yes.
Commissioner Abrams.
No.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Yes.
Commissioner Dish.
Yes.
Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Weich.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We appreciate all your feedback. Thank you.
Okay, I think we are on to item 10 for public comment. This is an opportunity for people to speak up to 3 minutes about any issue that is any issue, actually. And we'll first call on individuals here and then remote. To speak during the public hearing, press *9 if listening by phone, or use the raise hand feature of viewing through the web link. For phone access, call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 977-6634-1226. To unmute, press *6. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. Please move to a quiet area. For either method, please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Gibrandal. Planning Commission, Ken Garber again. I'd really like to address my comments to Mr. Loughran. You've seen how much we care in this community about our future, our present. I mean, the climate crisis to many of us is something that keeps us up at night. It's all we think about in our spare time. And we're seeing our city climate action plans basically go up in smoke in real time. Not just tonight, but in previous meetings with previous developers. So I'd just like to ask you, would you meet with me and others of us who are concerned about this and see if we can work something out? Dr. Langmore here. I mean, we have a lot of smart people here in Ann Arbor. Dr. Langmore is former chair of biophysics at the University of Michigan, co-founder of a successful biotech company. We had a pediatric neurosurgeon, Dr. Garten, call in earlier today. I'm a comparative dummy. Ken Clark, another smart guy. I really think that this can happen and would be compatible with economic feasibility of your project. I mean, that's ultimately your decision, but we'd really appreciate an in-person meeting to discuss it.
I'd really appreciate meeting with you, so definitely.
Thank you. And thank you, Commission, for a really thoughtful discussion tonight. There's not much more left to be said. So I'm at a loss for words, which may be a first. So thank you. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak? Anybody remotely?
We do. Hugh Garden, you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I want to thank both the developer and the Planning Commission for the thoughtful efforts into this protocol. And I want to ask the members of the Planning Commission to make an effort to speak to members of City Council between now and the time this comes to a vote about your feelings. It seems to me there's a very strong opportunity for the City Council to move with its funds and its efforts to support the developer if the developer can find a way to get to the point that we all wish they would get to. If this truly is a matter of dollars and it can be put in a dollar number per unit, well, we're going to vote soon enough for a large sum of money for climate action. That's what that money should be for. Here's a great chance to spend that money in a way that will guarantee us a carbon reduction that we want. So please use your efforts to speak to members of the City Council. I certainly will. We should be able to craft a plan if we're just talking about $40 to $50 per month per unit. That's not that much money. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other speakers.
All righty, we are on to item 11, which is commission proposed business. Anybody have anything? Commissioner Lee.
I forgot earlier when we were doing commission reports about transportation, one of the things that came up was I'm sorry, what's the right word for it? We are looking to basically eliminate right turns on Red in downtown. So I just wanted to, the discussion came back about setbacks, visibility, and also kind of like pedestrian thoroughfare. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, gotcha. And so I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that was passed. We supported the motion. It's going to go to City Council. But as far as kind of like from the land use, we talked a lot about TC1 as the idea of the zero setback and the interaction with the right-of-way. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up that the downtown elimination of turn right on Red is moving forward. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Weich.
Mr. Leonard, did you decide about the Michigan Planning Conference?
I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you. Yes, I heard, I think, from you and Commissioner Clark. We could support your attendance. Thank you for reminding me. That would be helpful for a motion from the Planning Commission to support the attendance of Commissioners Clark and Weich to the Planning Conference this year.
So moved. Okay, Commissioner Dish, and seconded by Commissioner Mills. Do we do a little vote here?
Voice vote would be fine.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Now I will do what I can to find you a place to stay.
All righty, we are on to item 12, which is adjournment. Moved by Commissioner Weich, seconded by Commissioner Abrams. We are done. 8:55.
Sorry, Commissioner Lee. I was